Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure for me to host today our webinar on the pharmaceutical and medical technology potential of Iran. And I hope that you will have an interesting and informative time with us and with our speakers, whom I would like to introduce now. Dr. Nasser Riahi, who is the president of the Iranian Association of Drug Importers, Dr. Nariman Sadri, CEO of Daman Ara Company and board member of the Iranian Knowledge-Based Health Companies Association, Dr. Elahi Alhabi, country manager Iran at Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies, and Professor Moshtaba Abdi, International Affairs Manager of Faham Baha Daman Medical Company. And I would like to thank them for taking the time to join us, and also I would like to ask them to excuse me for mangling their names. So I hope that you will have an interesting time with us. My name is Christoph Grabmeier. I'm the Trade Commissioner here in Teheran. Let me give you also some brief comments on the situation here in Iran. The main challenges of selling to Iran is the question of political insecurity and the economic troubles the country is experiencing. Well, as you know, we do have a new president, a new incoming president after the elections, and the big question is, of course, what can be expected of him? He will take office on August 8th. In between that, before that, we will have some time where, well, we will see what's going to happen. He will have to nominate the different ministers, his vice presidents, and these people will have to get confirmed. So there is also a question, who is going to be in power in those positions. Right now, everybody is guessing. Of course, there's a long list of names of potential candidates going around, and also there's a lot of guessing going on. What will he do? Which kind of the direction will he take in foreign policy, in internal policy, and of course in economic policy, which is the thing which is most of interest to us right now. The second thing is the JCPOA talks in Vienna. We are all hoping that the breakthrough is coming right now, today, tomorrow, at the very latest the day after tomorrow. But here again, your guess is as good as mine. What is going to happen here? It will be very difficult, and our crystal ball, at least my crystal ball, is quite cloudy, and we do not know exactly what the outcome is. We all hope for the best. The economic troubles, of course, I don't have to tell you, but I still am going to do it, that Iran is in a very unfavorable position, as it's called, between the US sanctions and the pandemic. And on top of that, there are also some homemade problems which have nothing to do with either, but still pose substantial problems, especially to people wanting to do international business. So the sanctions have hit Iran very hard, especially as they have made it quite impossible for Iran to sell oil and gas and petrochemical products, which are the main products which bring in foreign currency, which then can be used for exports from Austria in our case. And well, this is quite a substantial problem. But surprisingly, after some years of recession, ever since the former Trump administration in the US put the sanctions to work again, this year the Iranian economy seems to grow. And it's not only local statistics which say this, but it's also the World Trade Organization and the IMF which are confirming this. And it shows one thing, that the Iranian business community has a lot of creativity and they are very flexible, and they know from experience, unfortunately, how to work at least a little bit in these situations, which in many other cases would have caused even bigger troubles to the economy and to the business community. Iran and Austria, well, we have had together many years of cooperation, and this cooperation was beneficial to both parties. It was not really unequal business, but I think both sides have profited quite substantially from the good years. But now, since 2018, of course, our commercial exchanges have been heavily impacted by the sanctions, and lately, on top of that, by the pandemic. 2017, which was the last, let's say, normal year, Austrian exports have been about 350 million euros. Last year, 2020, they have dropped to about 1/3, 120 million euros. Iranian exports have varied even more because, of course, oil exports and petrochemical exports have all but disappeared. If you look at the potential, it's enormous. Even the 350 million euros of Austrian exports and between 200 and 500 million euros of Iranian exports, depending on oil purchases, are only the tip of the iceberg. If you look at neighboring Turkey, which is a country about the same size of Iran, both by territory and population, there the commercial exchanges amount together to between 2.5 and 3 billion euros. And this is something which the exchanges between Austria and Iran could reach also, because well, where Turkey has the tourism potential and income, Iran has oil and gas, and that could make in a few years of normal development also the exchanges between Austria and Iran reach the level they have with Turkey. Let me just tell you what we as Advantage Austria, as Außenwirtschaft and das Außenwirtschaftszentrum Teheran are planning to do. We have for the second part of the year planned quite some events. We would be very much happy to welcome you to them. And also in a few hours, basically tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we are having the National Exporttag, where there is still room for individual consultations. And so if you're interested to have questions answered you would not like to pose in public in an open meeting, just register, and get the time slot for individual consultations. Of course, you can have those consultations every day during the year. Just give us a call, send us an email, because these individual consultations we are still considering, and we will continue to consider them the most important part of our work. So with that, I think I have stressed your patience enough, and I would like now to pass on the microphone to Dr. Riai, the chairman of the Association of Iranian Drug Importers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grabmaier, Dr. Grabmaier. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is my honor to be speaker in this webinar. As Dr. Grabmaier introduced me, I am president of Iranian Pharmaceutical Importers Association, and at the same time I'm a member of the board of Teheran Chamber of Commerce and Iran Austria Chamber of Commerce as well. Sorry, you may excuse me, because I am on the way to Vienna and I was supposed to stay today in Dubai, but because of the flight cancellation from Dubai to Vienna, I may go via Munich to Vienna, and I have flight in 3 hours. So I do not have any presentation, and I talked with Dr. Sadri. He will include the things which I wanted to tell you mostly. Generally speaking about pharmaceutical export to Iran from foreign companies, and from our point of view, since 5 years, Iranian government is giving priority to local production, meaning that if there is enough local production with acceptable quality, they forbid importation of pharmaceuticals. But good point is that in any case, pharmaceuticals and also medical items are in priority, and first currency government has allocated for this purpose. So to be honest, we don't have that much problem to get currency to buy and import pharmaceuticals as well as medical devices. Our main problem is banking routes and transactions, which banks do not take a risk, and usually they put a lot of restriction in transfers of currency, so on. But pharmaceuticals generally imported to Iran from Western Europe and USA, and we had no problem with suppliers. One thing which has happened after giving this priority to local production, some international companies, including German and Swiss companies, made their plants or participate as a partner in plants in Iran and producing under license, which my colleagues Dr. Sadri and Dr. Alavi, Mrs. Dr. Alavi will explain about that and will give you example for this sort of business. If any foreign company is investing in Iran, government and Ministry of Finance give guarantee letter that their investment and even forthcoming profits will be safe and secure. And till today, we do not see any problem in that. Companies like Nestle have their own plant in Iran and working very well. And my own experience is a joint venture company and partnership with a German company named Biotes since 15 years. And even in the worst time, they were able to get their profits to be transferred with favorable rate to their account. So what I can recommend, besides don't stop export to Iran, I'm talking about pharmaceuticals, of course, and if any of companies would like to have more market in Iran, one of the ways is even indirectly invest in local companies, local producers, because government would like to create jobs, and also when companies, local producer, raw materials, and this stuff come from countries which are more flexible. A lot of Indian and Chinese companies are now have in Iran and have their own plant, or they are partner of some plants. This is what I can recommend. And in year 2020, we had, beside the pandemic of COVID-19, which they spent about 1.5 billion euros for special medicine and devices for that purpose. Still, we were able to have nearly 1 billion euro importation of different pharmaceuticals and raw materials, which when I compare with year 2019 or 2018 was only 20-30% less than that. And one of the reasons why was that a lot of local productions are covering the market. Otherwise, we did not have severe shortage of any pharmaceutical items. There are some ways to invest in Iran, which is not direct way, like having a company and having sister company in Iran can be 100% owned by foreign company, and that company then can invest and do the business without involving its mother company, which we have a lot of examples for this route. My colleague Dr. Sadri will explain more about these details during his presentation, but I'm available if there is any question. By all means, I am at your service. Now I give the floor to Dr. Sadri to continue. Thank you very much for hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Grabmaier. Thank you, Advantage Austria. Thank you, Dr. Riahi. This is my honor to present Iran pharmaceutical market and economy to you. I understand that probably people out there sitting in Vienna and other cities, you would like to know more about how to do business in such an exotic country. So probably some of you heard about Iran in the news and about Iran relationship with the US and the discussion that now is going on around the Iran nuclear deal in Vienna. So I'm trying to elaborate a little bit that how my country look like when it comes to doing business in Iran, and I hope that some of the questions that you have in mind being answered through my presentation, but after the presentation also, I'm at your disposal to making sure that those questions that not being answered through the presentation, we have interaction having them answered. So my name is Nariman Sadri. I'm CEO of one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in Iran, but at the same time, I'm the board member of knowledge base companies of health. So we are investing a lot in startups and the new trends in biotechnology and digital health. So I will talk about a little bit about Iran as a whole. So probably by now you surf internet around my country, but I will go through deep indicators of economy, demographic, and market, and then a little bit about Iran pharmaceutical. So about Iran. So in the Middle East, a big country of 1.6 million square meters, square meters, and 84 million population. 1% almost is the percentage of world population. So we are talking about a very big country, as Dr. Grabmaier mentioned, is as big as Turkey, and the economy is as potent as Turkish economy, with almost 75% of the population urbanized and living in big cities. If you take a look at the right side of the slide that I'm showing you, you see the map of Iran, and you see some names. Those names are big cities. And between those big cities, you see desert and you see big mountains. What does it mean? It means that the logistic and access in Iran is big concern. So we are talking about more than 1,000 cities that population is there, and you need to operate in a way to have access to that population. This is why Mr. Ria, he mentioned that always for other companies, even big multinationals, when they are operating in Iran, they have local partners to making sure that their products go through a big logistic networks and have access to Iranian people in small cities. Life expectancy is quite high compared to other developing countries, thanks to our developed healthcare system. Also, in terms of income, we are among upper middle income countries. So you're talking about the 18th countries in the world in terms of total GDP. So if we talk about the demographic of the population, why it is important? It is important to understand that what kind of products are appealing in Iranian market. You're talking about a population in the middle of the pyramid. So we have from age almost 30 to 45, so like a young and middle-aged class. We have a big chunk of the population there, and they are educated, as said so. So they are looking for better lifestyle. They are looking to increase their quality of life, and they have high literacy and knowledge rate. So when you're talking about the innovation, when you're talking about products of quality of life, this is part of the population that you can target, and you can think about your brands there. But at the same time, at the bottom of pyramid, we have high rate of fertility compared to European countries and birth rate. And government continue encouraging people to having more and more child. It means that the solutions for pediatric and kids make sense in Iran, and we have a big market there which is increasing. But at the same time, this population is aging. So like other big countries in the world, we have problems with non-communicable disease like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases. So talking about the political environment, Dr. Grabmaier shed the light on that, but for you to know, probably if not surf already the internet, we have two parts in our government, executive and non-executive. So you heard that we recently had our presidential election. So president, in essence, is kind of a prime minister in Iran, managing the execution part. But also we have a supreme leader who is managing the military, judiciary, and foreign affairs, that leading the general policy of the government, which is non-executive, non-elected part. For years, it's like 4 decades, we are struggling and having kind of a fight, not direct fight, but indirect fight with the US and Israel. And around that, we face international trade limitations. But let's take a look at those international trade limitations to understand that, okay, what's happening if you want to have trade within Iran. There are targeted embargoes on different sectors, making trade overseas for big Iranian industries. We have equipment embargo that cannot be sold to Iran. This is why several big machineries cannot be sold to Iran. The Central Bank of Iran is sanctioned. Also, we have trade limitations around individuals. So some part of our armies or officials cannot do trade with foreign companies. But at the same time, when it comes to pharmaceutical and health, which is the topic of today, international trade with Iran can be done because they are humanitarian goods. So let's look at what does it mean. You have a country where the central bank is sanctioned by the US, but you can do trade. How we can do trade? In this slide, I tried to elaborate how you can do trade with Iran. So we have a trade balance with the world, which is as big, the export and import is as big as $40 billion around. So it means that we have export of $40 billion, usually to Asian countries, China, Japan, South Korea. We are selling petrochemicals, we are selling a little bit of gas, electricity to Iraq. Also, we are selling to Europe some agricultural product like pistachio and saffron. So we have money there sitting in commercial banks in the targeted export countries. But at the same time, we need technology. We need pharmaceutical products. We need medical products. So we can import those products by European exporters, usually because the main source of supply is from Europe. And those monies sitting in the Asian banks need to move to banks in Europe, and then we import from there. Usually the Iranian commercial banks, which are not sanctioned, they open accounts in Asian banks, but at the same time in European banks, and transfer the money between their accounts. So Iranian exporters selling their currency they have overseas to Iranian commercial banks, they buy it, for instance, in a bank in Hong Kong or in Shanghai. Then that Iranian bank transfer the money to Europe, sitting now in Uber bank, for instance, in Vienna. And now your partners, which is an Iranian importer, can buy products from you and pay the money in Europe to you. So this is like a cycle. It's a barter. It's a very primitive system, but because our central bank cannot do anything outside of Iran, they try to link Iranian importers to Iranian exporters to make the business. So it's like a barter. At the same time, if you take a look at the economic sanctions and the impact of doing business with Iran, you need to consider we are talking about a big size government. Iranian government is very big. We have MOH of Iran, 500,000 people works in Iranian Ministry of Health. Around 1.5 million people works in the Ministry of Education, and around another million works in the other ministries. So we are talking about noticeable presence of the government in financial and manufacturing sector. This is why, as Mr. Riahi said, so Iranian government has, when they have struggled with the other government like the US, they are trying to have kind of self-sufficiency, and they are managing the financial sector and economic sector to serve these purpose. Also, we are the biggest economy in the world, which is not the member of WTO. What does it mean? It means that usually in Iran, you have non-tariff barriers. Sometimes MOH or the Ministry of Industry or Commerce, they are banning the importation of a product, which is not usually in the modern world in 21st century happen in the other part of the world. But because we are not part of WTO, so we are not respecting to eliminate non-tariff barriers. At the same time, intellectual property is a question mark here. So it works in two different perspectives. In one perspective, there are Iranian knowledge-based companies that are copying the know-how and the technology and using it in Iranian industries. But at the same time, because we have our own regimen, as Mr. Riahi said so, if a European company comes to Iran and invests, then usually you have protection of your patent and you have protection of your brand more than worldwide. For instance, we have an example in Iranian pharmaceutical industry. Novo Nordisk, Danish company, came to Iran 5 years ago and invest in having a plant. Now they have kind of an unusual protection for their manufacturing, which is not happen in other parts of the world. And they protect their products in Iran more than the rest of the world, and they are doing manufacturing and selling to the market. So kind of an exclusivity, which is not exist for these Danish companies in the other side of the world. But at the same time, you need to consider that it only happen if you have a reliable partner in Iran who can do this kind of lobbying for you. So we are talking about a big economy, which is have the second biggest gas reservoir, fourth biggest crude oil, but at the same time having the big population, which is the second in the MENA region and largest economy after Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So very appealing to take a look at, especially that, as Dr. Grabmaier mentioned, our economy is about to have growth, 3%. 3% is more than average of the rest of the world, is of course by far more than Europe, and probably if you exclude China and a little bit of BRICS countries, you don't have other countries as big as this. When you take a look at how to do business in Iran, you need to consider Iran is not the easiest country to do business. Take a look at internet, take a look at the other different elements of doing business in a country. We have lengthy paperwork. If you can make a company in UAE now for less than a day, or in Qatar or in Oman, now the competition in growing economy is how many hours you need to have to make a company and you make it operational. But still in Iran, we are talking about months. So how to do business in such a bureaucratic, big government? The way that big multinationals like Roche, like Sanofi, like Novo Nordisk, like Boston Scientific in medical equipments and others find is to having reliable partners. And if you take a look at business in Iran, we are talking about a few companies who knows how to deal with the US multinationals, European companies, and how they build a company which is compliant, which is making at the standards of Europe and US, and then having several representation of those companies. Definitely, I will share my presentation with you, but some of the slides only focus on why doing business in Iran. Again, in health sectors, we are talking about a country that 10% of its GDP comes from health, and almost 10% of so 8.1%, but it comes from 9% to 8.1 and start to grow again, thanks to the investment in the infrastructure of health. But also 10% of the total of GDP on health is in pharmaceutical. We have one of the biggest primary network systems, health systems in the world. So from tribes to villages that we have nurses and general practitioners sitting there and having access to free of charge medicinal products, to big cities that we have tertiary level. We are talking about thousands of beds, very much independent from having service from other countries, already invest a lot on private and charity and governmental sectors. Also Of course, part of this investment is in big cities, especially capital Tehran, but others in the main provinces. We have almost 200,000 doctors for 84 million people. We have a good ratio of access to doctors. Then let's take a look at pharmaceutical market. In pharmaceutical market, we are talking about almost self-sufficiency. So the pie chart at the right showing you that only 4% of pharmaceutical need of the nation is imported. But if you take a look at the left side, you see that these 4% consist of 30% of the value. Why? Because still we are importing high value medicines, like high value medical solutions for cancer, for new innovations and others. So still we are in need. 4.6 billion market size, which is at subsidized rate. So soon, in a year or two, you will see that this market will be doubled. Why doubled? Because if you take the methodology of calculation, you see that this size of the market comes from a subsidized local currency that we just use FX rate to show you that how big is this market when you turn to euro. But this subsidized market is the plan of the government to be lifted. Means that in 2 years' time, you are seeing a big market as big as 9 billion euro market size, which is as big as Turkey, with a solid high growth rate. So if you take a look at the trade, we import from European countries, of course, leading by big multinational companies, and we are exporting to others. At the right side of the graph, you see Germany. This Germany comes from a biologic product, plasma and blood derivatives, because we are collecting plasma locally, exported to Germany, and we are doing fractionation. So we are building medicinal products, making medicinal products, and then take it back to the country. And we are almost self-sufficient for that. Also, you're seeing Russia, because we are exporting some monoclonal antibodies to Russia, and we have a good market share there. The rest are neighboring countries that we have political influence. Also, we are selling to them. Also, take a look at the big multinationals. You remember that 30% that I showed you? So this consists of the activity of big multinationals. French Sanofi has almost a quarter of that. Danish Novo Nordisk another quarter. Then we are talking about big Swiss companies like Novartis and Roche, and the rest comes from Germany, Austria, you name it, US and the others. Also, there is a model, a very nice model of exporting pharmaceutical products to Iranian market. There is a big company in Vienna, Hexamon, who is dealing with other big multinational companies, buying from them and resell to Iran. It helps the multinational companies, and even small to medium size, to be protected from international trade limitations. So Hexamon working in between, so buy and sell. Then the European companies are secured to receive their money from Class A banks in the Europe with international well-known compliance system, but at the same time Hexamon finding solution with the Iranian government and local partners to deliver the medicinal products to Iran. So actually I can say chapeau to Austrian system to help to having such a big trade to Iran. So if you take a look at the local market structure, we are talking about importers and manufacturers. Then they sell to wholesalers, and wholesalers to point of sales. We are talking about 10,000 point of sales from referral pharmacies to private pharmacies in Iran. So that's it. If you allow me by this, I stop. So by this, you now know the demographic. you understand from my presentation that we are talking about a big country with a little bit of complexity in doing business. There is, of course, US and international trade limitations, an embargo on Iran, but there are ways of doing business. Why? Because humanitarian activities like medical products and pharmaceutical are exempted, but also there are Iranians who knows how to deal in a compliant manner with European partners, and there is a very good example in Vienna making deal with multinational companies and Iran. So if you think about doing business in emerging market, probably because the competition is still limited in Iran, Iran not only can be a good market of export for you, but also can be a door, a big door to emerging market and developing countries. Thank you very much, and I'm at your disposal if any question. So the question can be answered now or later? Okay, so please send the questions or you can put it on a chat box and I'm at your disposal to answer.
Hello, good morning everybody. This is Elahe Alavi. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Grabmeyer for this great webinar and this great event. I am the country manager of Janssen, taking care of Janssen products in Iran, the pharmaceutical division of Johnson & Johnson. I'm heading the Health Commission in the Swiss Chamber of Commerce, and I'm the chapter lead for the Women Leadership Inclusion in the Middle East for Janssen as well. Now, as Dr. Sadri gave you a great information on the market, now I will just drive you through a little bit more through the pharma market and how we can do business in Iran. How do you change the slide? It's working, yes. Okay, about the pharma channels that we have, as Dr. Sadri said, we do have, can I go to previous slide? It's not working. Yes, thank you. So as we said, we've got 30% importation to the market, and there is 30% that we have finished products that are coming to the market, and there is a 70% that is locally produced. So this is your way to see how do you want to enter the market. Do you want to import? You want to import your products, and you want to come to the market as importation, or you're looking for a locally production in the country. Anyway, if you import or you locally produce, the channel is that it goes to the wholesalers, and then from the wholesalers it goes to the retail pharmacies and other pharmacies and hospitals. Now, I don't know why. Oh, okay. So the key stakeholders that you will have in this market will be the wholesalers, then the pharmacies, hospitals, physicians, and insurance companies. Okay, so there's lots of positive market dynamics right now going on. The foreign investment in the Iranian pharmaceutical market is picking up. We are having lots of international companies who are now localizing in the country. We have Roche, Novartis, Sanofi, Novo, Astellas, Sandoz, and AstraZeneca that have right now localization in process, and they're locally producing their products in the market. And after the JCPOA, there were lots of other companies who were coming to the country, even American ones. But unfortunately, due to the sanctions, lots of them withdraw, and now we are only left with the European ones who are now very active, and they're having local production in the country. Iran plans to provide acceptable environment in order to attract foreign investment for pharmaceutical industry to upgrade its technology capacities, and high-tech medicines such as MABs and recombinant proteins are really welcome. And if you have these sort of products, they are really welcome for localization here. There are great key components in the country, such as expertise, skilled labor, low cost of production, geopolitical location, and infrastructure that really supports you if you want to have local manufacturing in the country. So here in this map, you can see Iran in the middle. It's among the high developed human resources. So you really can find very good, capable people who can really work with you in different sectors. Now, it's very important that how you want to enter this market. There is, of course, from what Dr. Sadri said, Dr. Riahi said, there are really great opportunities for growth. But the environment is not a straightforward environment. It's a bit difficult to enter. Now, you have to really make your homework well. You have to prepare. You have to plan well. You have to investigate the local market mechanics. You have to know the regulatory frameworks. You have to know about the culture, business culture, domestic competition, and you have to study your competitors very well, and then you can enter the market after doing all these plans very well. There are two ways that you can enter the market. Either you can collaborate with local agents, or you can localize and establish your own local offices. If you use a local agent here, of course, you do have some benefits. The dominant strategy employed by international companies is this: they are using local agents in the country. Why? Because these local agents, they offer access to infrastructure, to distribution networks, and to the key stakeholders. So you really bypass all these difficulties by choosing a very good local agent. But there is another way as well. You can localize and establish your local offices here. The Iranian Food and Drug Organization, they're encouraging a lot for international companies to come and establish directly their own offices in the country. They really like international companies to take care of their medicines here in the country themselves. So you can choose which other way you would like to enter the market. I don't know why this is not working. Can I go to the next slide? There's some kind of connection. It's not. Okay, sorry for this. It seems that it's going. We have to go another one. Okay, so what are the national drug policies that's going on? It seems that, sorry, these slides are a bit mixed up. I don't know, it's not working. Okay, the national drug policy, the regulation of the drug market is really high, but the country is mainly a generic-based medicine. And over here, the policy is that you have lots of generic products in the country. Of course, nowadays you're seeing a lot of branded generics and a little bit shift to brands as well. But dominantly, it is a generic market. The promotion of local production and medicines is really favored by the Ministry of Health, and they really like localization, and they're supporting heavily locally products. There is a huge price control. They are controlling each shipment of your importation, how much you're pricing it, how you're pricing it, and the Ministry of Health is involved in the pricing very strictly. There is a lot of high tariffs on imported medicines. If your medicine or your product has a local generic, then you're going to pay about 32% taxes on top of what you have to pay if your product is not locally produced. If your product is not locally produced, you usually pay about 4% taxes. And the negative point that we have, and it's really difficult, is that the IP protection is not there. Okay, now, so if we go and we have go through all what we've said, what Dr. Sadri said, how the market looks, and we go through a quick SWOT analysis, you will see there are lots of strengths, lots of weaknesses, on top, lots of opportunities. And just to go through some of the really important ones, the strength is it's a large pharmaceutical market. It's one of the largest. It's a fast-growing population. The government strategy to get to self-sufficiency is there. So they're really looking forward for local manufacturing, especially of really high-tech products. And there is this FIPA, which is the Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Act, which gives you a kind of a protection if you do businesses in Iran. And there is a high educated population. You can get really good skilled workers here. And on top, you have very good educated doctors, HCPs, and you're talking with really educated population here. The weakness is the strict government price control. There is lots of price control going on. It's a generic-based market, so the base of the insurance is for the generic products. Importation restrictions, as we said, it's not so easy to get quota to import. And the new molecule registrations during these few years has been really difficult, and we're really facing lots of difficulties in registering new molecules. But we hope that after the sanctions are lifted, then this will change and we will have lots of new molecules added to the ideal, the Iranian drug list. The opportunities is that privatization is taking place very quickly. We're seeing lots and lots of private companies, and there is plans to improve drug registration timelines, and they were looking at this, and facilities to get modernization to the country. And most of all, there is a huge need for new molecules to come to the country, because as I said, it's around 3 years that we didn't have much new molecules added. So the market is really thirsty, the patient's really in need, so you can add your new molecules to this country easily, hopefully after these sanctions are removed. The threats are that the exchange rate is fluctuation, has lots of fluctuation, and it's fluctuating every day. This makes business a bit unstable. And there is the regulatory, in terms of regulatory, there are lots of changes in the infrastructure, changes in the rules and regulations, and we see these changes, so you have to be really flexible, you have to be updated with these changes and work and see how you can find your way out through these changes. And the most important thing is there is the lack of IP protection. So in many times you see that your life cycle is very short if you don't move to local manufacturing. If you're just staying as finished product, your life cycle is not so long because you will have copies very soon. So it's the best way, the best model is that you start with your finished products, then gradually move to localization, and then you can get to really having your products under license manufactured here. And as we said before, the mandatory price decreases, which are being asked all the time by the ministry, and the pricing, which is really regulated and controlled by the Ministry of Health. So as a whole, there is lots of opportunities in this country. There is lots of things that can be done in this country. I mean, it's difficult to enter the country, but there are lots of companies that have been struggling with all these difficulties, and they maintain in this country, they do business, and they help the Iranian patients. There is lots of expertise, skilled labor, low cost of production, geopolitical location of Iran is really important, the infrastructure and support of national authorities that they really want to make Iran as a potential export hub for the whole region. This is what we're seeing in Nestle. They have really good manufacturing facilities in Iran, and they are really exporting to all the neighboring countries, and they're having the Middle East exports from Iran. So I think there is lots of place and room to grow. So as an Austrian company, you can enter the country and you can enter within this business, but you have to do your homework very well and see how you can enter and then grow the business as it goes. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'll be available for any questions that will come.
In any case, how are you? I think you are very good. and think all the presentations our colleagues have for you was very useful. However, I was to come here to talk about the medical equipment in Iran market. I should tell I'm Abdi from Pharma company, and nice to meet you, to have you in here. In any case, I want to excuse me. I want to brief my presentation for you. I think all the details are given to you about the detail of marketing in Iran market. In that case, I should tell you about the medical equipments in Iran market. The Iran equipment markets are really special. You know, the most of the market are given to the American companies in the medical devices, mostly the good brands like Abbott, Boston Scientific, Medtronic, Covidien, and after that we have other companies which are presenting in the market, the West Europe companies. As I explained you, we are grading all these companies in Iran market to show their level of importance in the MOH of the Iran. The Iran have 981 hospitals totally. It's a big number in the whole of the Middle East, and also about 129,000 beds totally. Let me not for me. خیلی کنده سیستم، خیلی کنده. یه بار دارم میزنم، خیلی excuse me, it's a little slow to show the presentation. You can see the parity of interest in the Iran market. The first and the most interesting products are from the Japanese and United States companies. After that, we have the German and West Europe companies. After that, we are interested in Central Europe, and at the least and last, the Chinese and Indian and other companies are really important for the Iran market to go to Iran and have the presentation of their products. You can see here the name of some of the Austrian companies which are presenting in the Iran. It is 30 company with a 29 agent which is presenting at the moment. The most and the best in the market, I think, is the electrodes from the skin tax. You can see also the company here. I'm summarizing some details, but I put all for you to get know with the details, and also the products are importing to the market. Most of the products which are importing at the moment to the Iran market from the Austria is a laboratory. After that, we have the dental products, and at last we have the general products and the devices which is used, like the machineries which we have in dental and other fields, CAD cams mostly. The first, and I think the main question for you is, should you enter directly to the Iran market? Absolutely, I tell you no. The Iran market is no place to go directly in. Mostly you need an agent, or maybe you can make new company in Iran, a holding, and you can do your business with that. But I never recommend to open a new company in Iran, as the OFAC sanctions for the importing and also for your company are getting involved with some serious issues. So I can recommend you to have an agent in the Iran to present your products in the market. Their Iran registry take a long time. At least we have 3 to 6 months. If all of your documents, all of your tests, all of your queries was okay, we have a lot of requirement for your products. It's different for each product. I have another file for you which I give to the Advance, Austria Advance, to show you about the requirements of any product which is allowed to import it to the Iran market. And you can also ask me later about it. Documents for the registry are easy, but I should separate the registry phase to understand it better about the registry in Iran. We have two-phase registry in the Iran market. The first registry, primary registry of your products in the Iran market, which will register the name of your company in the Iran market. Okay. For this registry, we need your letter of authorization, your brand verification, commitment of your company about doing your business regarding the good manufacturing, the C and FDA. If you have the FDA also, it is not mandatory, but you can have. And also after that, the most important thing is your ISO and your CE, which is important for the Iran to legalize and register your products. With your CE and ISO, they understand where you are manufacturing your products and where you are doing your business. The registry in Iran also is two-phase. I should recommend you. The first phase is you directly give your letter of authorization to your agent company in Iran, which I write here for you, the direct way to give a registry. But another way is to do this as a indirect. For the big companies which are working with United States and they are want to not affected by the OFAC sanctions, mostly they are working with an intermediate company in other countries. Like for us, we are working with a German company. It's an Iranian-based company. It is the owner of the company is us, but it is based in the Germany. The company, the American company or European companies which are working with the United States give the letter of authorization to that company. After that, it not need any legalization of these documents, just it should be printed in your paper letter. After that, the intermediate company legalize your documents to and give it to the main company or your agent in the Iran. The second phase, which is done, is the registry of your products. Each of your products needs a declaration of conformity, which you give for your CE, your free sales certificate, FSC, which you have from your country, you sell your product in your countries, the label of your products, global trading, international number of your products, market shares, description of the packaging, technical information. I summarize all of the things which you need to register your products for the CE. You need to also put in the Iran. Also, somehow the registry in Iran is like the FDA totally. So if you have any other test which you do for your products, you should put it for Iran. The Iran official persons in the MOH which are reading your documents and giving the allowance to you to import or register your products, know the border between the private or secret documents with the general, which is needed for the registry. If you are be fast, you can do the registry faster also in the Iran market. I put a totally registry in Iran. The first point is the start of your company in Iran, and the last is getting your Iran registry code, which is the code give for any product which is registered in the market. It can be shown in the website of FDA, or for the medical device, it is for the IMED, Iran Medical Equipment Department, which you can search your IRC if you get, and you can see your company name in it. As I explained, you should give all the documents which you have, but keep some documents for yourselves. The documents which is really important for you, and they shows your manufacturing secrets or any structure of your products. never Iran asks you for how you manufacturing the product. They are just asking for the test which you pass. Especially, I can name ISO 10993, which is for general products in the medical field. And also, there are really a lot of tests which is needed, especially for any detailed documents. I don't want to open it because it is a really big aspect to overview. In any case, so it is not needed for the non-confidential documents. You can give them. The Iran registry code, as I explained to you, is the main item which you are registered to Iran. If any of your product get a registry, you should have this number. The Iran is not the Turkey, is not like the other countries which give you a hardcover certificate to show you are registered in the Iran market with these products. Okay, they just give you a code. You can search in the Iran Medical Equipment Department, the website imed.ir. I'll tell it fast, but you can ask me later. You can search it and you can see your product is registered or not. For the pricing, our friends tell you a little detail, but I should give you all the importation to the market is based off the other products which is imported to the market. Okay, we are based on the grading, the test which you passed, and anything. The Iran level your company, they're recording all the documents which you sense, ranking them, and after that they give you, okay, you are in this rank and the price which you can have is at last this. But it depends on your performance also, and all of the things which you have. I can recommend you to ask your agent at first for a good marketing report, because if you can have a better detail of other companies which is importing to the market of Iran, you can have a better view also about what price you can have and what is the border of your benefit in selling to the Iran market. Totally, I can explain you, maybe you can sell a product. I can explain you drug-eluting stents with 400 euro to another country, like to the India, Germany, or something like this. But that product, I can give you the detail of the name of the company, but it is a little confidential, is sold to Iran by 170 euro totally to Iran market. So the big market have a big benefits, but it have little big points which you should know about the pricing and the price of your other competitors in the market to know. I had another question about can I buy a product from China and after that sell it to Iran? No, absolutely you cannot going with this process, because for the registry of your products you need to be the manufacturer or at least the agent of the manufacturer for that product in the territory of the Iran. Somehow, if you are the agent, you are the intermediate company, as I explained before for you, and you can sell it to Iran also. In any case, I should recommend you never work with this field, because most of the trips which the Iran Medical Equipment Department had are coming and checking your manufacturing sites. And if you don't have any site for them, it will be a big problem for you and also for your agent in the market of the Iran. Next one. Grouping of the products, which I explained to you before and I mentioned. We have 4 grouping of the medical products in the Iran market. The T1 are the products which have highest priority to import to the market of the Iran. Mostly they are getting the governmental currency or subsidized currency from the government to import these products to the Iran market. These are essential products which is really needed in the market. The T2 and T3 are the products which maybe they are manufacturing or not manufacturing in the market, but are not really important products or essential. So they are grouped in two or three. And T4 are forbidden to import to the market. Most of these T4 products are the products which have a good manufacturer or have a lot of manufacturers in the market of the Iran. And because the policy of the Minister of the Health of the Iran, they are supporting the manufacturers in the market to import their products to the market. I also explain you about some other explains like the NEMO currency, which you can read also after our meeting. The grouping of the countries, the Austria hopefully is a grade 2 in the Iran grading. You are a good grading in the Iran market. You are equal to UK, French, and Italy. This grouping is based on the manufacturing capacity of any country, okay? It is not something which I can tell you, okay, this product is G2 or this is G1. The G2 product are the products which you are manufacturing. You are a high level and have a good priority in the market of the Iran. And so on, you are really have a good place in the market of the Iran if you want to import your products to the Iran market. In the medical devices, we don't have any restriction of exclusively or non-exclusively give your products to the market. I recommend you personally to give non-exclusively because the market is big and you have this capacity to give a product to other companies also to have a better competition. It is a personal recommendation. Don't show it to other companies. And the next question would ask. So also another company asked me another question about the details of SGS group companies. There are SGS group companies. In Iran, we have a really big companies which are working with SGS. I list a lot of them for you, but I don't put them. I just name them. SGS Iran, Arya SGS, ISQI. There are Iranian companies which are working with SGS. But in any case, if you want, I can introduce your company to these companies to have a joint venture about the licensing and also the tests which is needed for SGS in the Iran market. I'm really happy to have you in this meeting. If you have any question, just ask our friends in Austria Advance, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. I would like to extend my thanks to all the presentators who have generously let us have part of their knowledge. And now I would like to come to the questions and answer session. First of all, I want to say the presentation will be sent out to all the participants. So if you have not taken any notes, well, you will get the presentation itself, and I think that should be very useful. I would also like now to present one of the persons at our office who have made the whole event possible, Ms. Salome Saidi, who will, as the specialist for medical and pharmaceutical subjects, lead the questions and answer session. And she will group those questions in a way that we will have one of the presenters answer all the questions which concern her or him, and then pass to the other. It will not be in a straight chronological order we have received them. So, Ms. Saidi, please.
Hello, Salome Saidi. I'm the marketing manager at the Austrian Embassy in Tehran. We have received some questions. I would like to ask, I don't know if Dr. Riahi is still with us, so can I maybe address the questions to Dr. Sadri? We are a small Austrian company. We do only exports. Can we export to Iran without the obligation to invest? This is our first question, which can be followed by the second question. It says, you mentioned locally manufactured products cannot be imported. What happens if we export now our products to Iran and there is local production in the near future? Do we have to stop suddenly our exports to Iran, or do we have to pay a higher import tax for our products when entering the Iranian market? These were two questions addressed to you, Dr. Sadri. Maybe you can, yes, please. And I will go on with the questions.
So thank you very much for the questions. The first question was related to the topic that if you're exporter and you don't have any intention to do local manufacturing. So the question is, can we do business in Iran? Yes, of course. So as I showed you, and it is not only for pharmaceutical, but in the all health related businesses, you can do export, especially if you have innovation, which doesn't exist in Iran. You can do export and just simple sales, trade, and that's it. So Iranian companies will be encouraged to enter to your market in those cases that the business is as big as making sense to invest locally. So if we are saying that the government is supportive of local manufacturing, it doesn't mean that every simple thing needs to be manufactured in Iran. You need to have a minimum economy of a scale based on local scale, of course, to make business grow. So simple question, yes, you can discuss. And by the way, at the end of my presentation, I will introduce our business development, who can make the connection between Austrian companies and the rest of the syndicates in case you have a specific question, so keep it for that moment. Second question, if we are doing export, but we know from the market intelligence that in near future, another competitor, which is Iranian, come to the market with the same product. So should we stop? Should we continue? You can continue business as far as the Iranian player cannot supply the full demand in the market. So it will come gradually, usually. It will not come in like a suddenly that you cannot plan for that. So till that time that Iranian player cannot commit to authorities that I can supply the full market, they will give gradually the market to Iranians, and they will additionally add some tariffs to you, enabling them to swap to Iranian business rather than a European business. And then sometime in the future, if you have no intention to transfer part of the value to Iran, you need to stop. There are other elements. I need to understand what kind of business you are in. So please spare some time, write to us, and we definitely come back to you with more detailed reply based on the nature of your business. Thank you.
Dr. Sadi, please remain here because we have some more questions for you. Do drugs that have been manufactured and quality tested in Europe have to be tested again in Iran according to specifications, re-import test?
Yeah, sure. So the answer is usually no for the registration. So it means that Iran is consider European regulators as trusted regulators. So if the drug is already registered and consumed in the country of origin, now we're talking about Austria, and the regulators accept it, they are taking samples for lab test, but the release of the product is not linked to the result of the lab test. So usually they are taking, and it is in all the countries actually, if you have a minimum, let's say, surveillance in any country in developing world, usually they are taking samples, they are doing periodical testing, but they are not, let's say, keeping you product not registered because they don't have the result. So you can start the trade, but later on they are taking a look at the result of the test.
So another question for Dr. Sadri is packaging. If we pack our product in Iran, does this can this be considered as partially manufacturing in Iran?
Again, the question is not black. The answer is not black and white. There are products that are already locally manufactured, strong players in the market, and you wish to do only packaging. So they are saying that, okay, what is the benefit for the economy? Close to nil. So they are not allowing you to for instance, to import a product and do a packaging. That's it, and then making you compete with local players. But if there are players in the market which they are only doing packaging, or the players that are importing the full product, then you have intention to do local packaging. So it means that you are transferring part of the value. However, the value is narrow, but they are giving you some advantage, meaning that they are protecting you, they are giving you some time to transfer another part of the packaging to Iran. For instance, for glucometers only, they just start to do local manufacturing for glucometers. So if you do like simple assembly plus packaging in Iran, they are giving you some time to transfer the full technology.
And only one more question, Dr. Sadri. Maybe it's not your specialty, but I'm sure that you have more information. An Austrian company which would do trade for herbal medicine, and they say, we know that Iran is exporting herbal medicine or herbal products. Is it possible for Austrian companies to export herbal finished medicine to Iran?
Again, the answer is yes and no. So it depends on which herbal medicine we are talking about. First, yes, Iran is among those countries that have developed herbal medicine industry, but this developed is, I can say, we are not talking about an absolute term, because for some products we are still just exporting raw material. We don't have technology to have full extraction and making it happen. For some, it's full import. There are now some formulations that can be imported. If you take a look at the big products in the market, there are a few which is fully imported. There are some which is partially, so it's like a ready to fill products imported to Iran and then fill here or tablet here or put it in the capsule. So it depends. So you can send me the exact product to the email of our business development, and we come back to you with the exact answer of the question.
Thank you. Dr. Alavi, may I ask you to come over? So we have a question for Dr. Alavi. As a representative of an American company in Iran, do you have advantages or disadvantages?
Thanks a lot for this question. Well, here what's happening is that they do not really look at if you're an American company or a European company, and pharmaceutical is not under sanctions. So we can export to Iran. There is no problem. For some products, we need to get OFAC, but you just need to inform the offices in the US that you're exporting to Iran, or get your regulatory kind of licenses to import to Iran. So that's not a problem really. But the problem comes here that when you want to locally produce it in Iran, then there is a lot of problems, and it's usually a no to locally produce in Iran. But for exporting to Iran, there is no problems really. You just need to get your licenses and inform the authorities.
And maybe you can tell us about the products that you do produce in Iran. What kind of products do you produce in Iran, and do you export these products to the neighboring countries?
We are not producing anything here. Everything is coming in as finished products. We did have some plans to have localization at the time of the JCPOA, but right now there is no localization taking part, not for us and not for any American company in Iran. The products that we are importing are generally specialized products which do not have local production in the country. And these are very specialized and products for cancer, products that are maps, or this sort of difficult products to produce in the country where there's no local production for them. These products are usually being exported to Iran as finished products.
Do you, as a representative of Johnson & Johnson, do you also import the vaccines, corona vaccines, to Iran? And what is your opinion about the locally manufactured Iranian vaccine?
Regarding the vaccine, well, I can say that Janssen vaccine is among one of the best vaccines because it's a single dose. And we were a bit late to enter the market, but right now lots of European countries are, and it's being used in Europe, it's being used in the US. We have some kind of negotiations going on with the authorities here, and as I previously said, pharmaceutical products are not under sanctions, so we can sell to Iran, but we need to have some kind of paperwork and some kind of rules and regulations in place to be able to import the vaccine to Iran. And regarding the local produced vaccine, unfortunately, I'm not in the position to talk to give my opinion because I've not been working with them. I have not seen their trials, and we just hear what you have heard in the news, and they're right now doing the clinical trials, and some of them are now at the late phases of getting the approvals. So I don't know what's going on exactly in the local manufacturing phase.
Dr. Arabi, we have a question regarding the contraceptive market in Iran. Do you have any information about do these products get imported? How is the quality of the locally manufactured contraceptive medication? And if you have any kind of basic information, we will, of course, if there are any questions which are not absolutely the specialty of our speakers, we will come back to you with contacts and with information that we will find out for you from other experts.
Regarding contraceptives, of course, we were in the market for like 6-7 years back, so my data is a bit old. I don't have the really updated one, but at the time, most of the contraceptive market is locally produced. So we do have lots of local production happening in the country, and most of these pills are locally produced. But I tell you, I don't have the updated. If you want, I need to do some searches, and then I can come back to you. But the quality is not bad, and most of the Iranian ladies are using these local produced products. But there is need for the new generations and the more fancy ones. We used to have the ones that were implants or different sorts. So I think the country will really be happy to have new medication in this aspect, but we need to do more survey and we can come back to this question later on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abdi, please. So we have one question for you. Can I read the question?
Yeah.
Please. An Austrian company which says, we have developed an innovative system for the virtual reality therapy that is used in psychiatrics. We look for a local partner. Can you recommend any companies? Due to our employed Iranian psychologists, we can provide a professional communication in your language. For innovative systems in the medical industry, virtual reality, can you please give us basic information? Thank you.
So for the question, I can tell you, I can explain to you any of these details of the importation in Iran. However, your product is innovative. I think it could have a good market in the Iran market. So I recommend to start your negotiation for importing these products. But at first, I should explain you about the details of this product. If you have the CE, your ISO 13345, yeah, for the medical ISO, and also you have the free sale certificate for your products. You pass your effective and safety tests for your products. You can import your product to Iran market fast as it possible to Iran market. But about the details, your question is really totally. So I should give you a totally answer. Yeah, you can import. I can recommend you if you can send me an email to my email address as I put in my presentation. You can send me. I can introduce you to some other companies which are expertly working in this space. Hopefully, for any product like this product, any innovative products, if you have you pass the CE process in your country, mostly for the innovatives, you have also the capacity to import your product to your own market in any case. So I recommend you to start your work faster. Another?
Yes, we have another question for you. Software, export of software in the medical industry, is that possible, or is that sanctioned, or is that dual use, or how does it work?
You know, the softwares are not in sanction anyway, but it is depend on the software really. Totally, it is out of the field of medical health and this field, but I can give you an explanation about all the softwares. Totally, any software which we have in the Iran market, I can give you the IBM software for the statistical process. We can import the products to Iran market, but it have a little legalization, but and you should get the license from other -3, from the -3 of the culture from the Iran at first, because maybe your context have a little problem with the context of the Iran. Because of that, behind any of the medical fields, you need to get your license from others. Your agent can do this for you, but in any case, it is really case by case, so you should explain your detail, and I can give you a detailed explanation about importation.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Merci.
Thank you.
So one more question addressed to Dr. Sadri. Digital health is the new trend everywhere in the world and also in Iran. We have, you see even the billboards in Tehran streets regarding digital health clinics and so on. Can you please give us a brief summary of what is going on in the digital health industry in Iran? Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much for the question. So probably a little bit of brief on digital health, machine learning, AI, and all of these topics. Iran is among one of the leading countries in that sense. And there are several accelerators in the country, especially linked to the universities, investing on this topic. Also, private companies like mine and investing on machine learning and AI. Regulations are still not that defined. So as the industry is growing, regulators try to cope with new realities. So hand in hand, together with our regulators, we are trying to find solutions for new questions when it comes to e-commerce, when it comes to artificial intelligence, and when it comes to services through digital platforms. I can tell you, because the labor force and educated labor force especially is quite inexpensive in Iran, plus the fact that we have hundreds of universities with public investment focusing on this area, you have good hub for developing your solutions. If you already developed your solutions in Europe, you can localize it with people here in Farsi language, and you can easily find partners here to help you through going through first steps and making sure that you are with the local context. When it comes to the sanctions, in general, some digital solutions which are incubated in the US cannot be used in Iran. And this is part of the general frame of sanction. However, if your solution is a 100% or let's say 90% above European solution, then you can work with the local partner to secure OFAC, to making sure that if you expand your business in the US in the future, you will not be affected because one of your customers sitting in Iran. So there are solutions, but for which you need to work with legal experts and also local partners. And in the knowledge base association of companies, we are ready to provide you with some consultation and help as well, for which that you can contact me later.
Thank you.
So as far as you can see, there are no more questions. And that brings us to the end of our today's webinar. Once again, I would like the presenters for giving us their time and also giving us all this information. I would like to thank my colleagues here in Tehran and in Vienna for the support. And of course, I would like to thank you for your interest and your presence. Before I end this, I would like to once more to remind you of the Exporttag tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, where you can still register for some time slots to discuss matters with my colleagues and me. And with this, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see each other again soon, and preferably even in person here in Tehran. Our office is your office, or somewhere else in Vienna or in Austria. Thank you very much, and goodbye.